Hello and welcome to the Startups of London podcast. I'm your host Ozan and the founder of Startups of London. Today I'm joined by Nicola Gray, founder and community manager of Boxed Community, which defines itself as a virtual coworking and online community for creative entrepreneurs. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Ozan. Lovely to be here.
First of all, excuse me about the voice. I'm still a bit sick, recovering, so it might sound a bit nasal. Apologies to our listeners as well. Hope everyone is safe and healthy wherever they are listening to this. So can we start with unpacking the definition a bit? I know community is perhaps a frequently used term that's increasing in popularity in a lot of ways. But the virtual co-working and online community for creative entrepreneurs, it sounds fantastic, but I would really love to hear your definition of it, and let's unpack what that business is with you together here.
Cool. Great. Well, basically what we do in our platform is we have a host of activities which include deep learning sessions, ongoing workshops and skill shares with fellow members. And we go into really deep diving into our business and personal development. So, we focus on creative entrepreneurs because there isn't really much support in the sense of this kind of virtual space. And it is a little bit different to a physical co-working space, obviously, because you can do it from your own home. You don't have to leave and go to an office and that kind of thing, but you can tap into the same faces and have a safe space where you can be vulnerable no matter where you are in the world.
So how does it exactly work? Can you help us visualize that a bit? Is it a Zoom call filled with 35 people who don't like to turn on their cameras and keep them on themselves on mute? And yeah, how does it work in reality?
Okay, well, all of our activities are different, but if I can just explain, for instance, the virtual co-working sessions, which are deep work sessions, we basically have, for instance, in these 10 minutes to say hello to everyone, cameras on and, off mute. And then we go into 45 minutes of concentrated work. It's usually the stuff that you don't want to get done that gets done in these sessions. It's a great way to be accountable and to show up and just be in other people's spaces as well.
Hmm.
So we go on mute for 45 minutes, then we go off mute for 15 minutes, again, touching base, grabbing a cup of coffee, whatever it is. Then we go back in for our last 45 minutes, and then we take a 5-minute break. So yes, it is on Zoom because we do believe in a more face-to-face connection with regards to community. And we also do have a Slack space where we engage outside of the Zoom calls. So that's just our virtual co-working sessions. Then we have things like our monthly mental health conversations, which include topics like vulnerability, like confidence, anxiety, depression, loneliness, just because we believe that focusing on mental health is super important for all of us, especially if you have your own business. And we discuss that in depth once a month. We also have sessions like our money matters conversations where we talk about finance. We have our sales touch points where we talk obviously about sales and messaging. So there is quite a variety with regards to, like I mentioned, personal and business growth. And yeah, that's kind of how it looks and feels.
And you're focused on creative industries, creative people working in the creative industries. Is that the case? And how do you limit? Where is the line? And what kind of people usually make up the community?
To be honest, we don't define the line. It's really up to the individual. If they believe that they fit the category of creative entrepreneur, they are welcome. What we mean as a creative entrepreneur is someone who is innovative, someone who's coming up with new ideas, as well as individuals in creative industries, which could be writers or marketers, as well as designers and artists. So we try not to clearly define that, but we ask our members to kind of feel comfortable using that term for themselves.
This brings me on to my last question. There's always a difficult balance to strike with communities. I see it's kind of a paradox in a way. When it is too big, it becomes anonymous, and in a way it loses core value. If it is too small, then it doesn't self-sustain, if that's the right way of looking at it. So, how do you see this problem? And with that in mind, what is the size of the community now? What was it 3 months ago? What do you foresee it becoming in the next 3 months?
So we've always, from the beginning, have had the aim of having 150 people per community. Our big goal is to have 150 communities of 150 people in each all over the world. So I agree with you, especially in online communities, they can grow and there can be thousands and thousands of people, and then you lose that intimacy. And that's why we've focused on the idea of 150 people. We are growing with our new program. So we've just launched applications for our Trailblazer program, which is a 3-month free program for creative business owners. And it's basically you get all of the things that you might need as a startup. And this is a great way to grow communities and also give them a space outside of the program to continue on with us in the community. So that's kind of the next in line. At the moment, we have about 30 members. And like I say, we're looking to grow with the free offerings so that people can get a feel for it, because people don't necessarily understand the idea of virtual co-working yet.
Yeah.
Especially the way that we do it, which is very involved and a lot more kind of personal development aspects in it too. So that's why we're giving, free access for the 3 months to 30 startups so that they can really get a feel for what this looks like and how this can take them forward.
And it's going to be paid in the future, is that right?
Yeah, so our Trailblazers are actually fortunate enough to be able to get 50% off their next 3 months once they finish the program, and then 25% off the following 3 months, and then it'll go paid again. But our membership rates are really reasonable. So we've tried to keep it quite accessible, especially our higher tier model, which includes one-on-one coaching every 2 weeks, just because we've found that it's coaching can be so expensive. And we've wanted it to be part of our membership so that it's accessible for people and people can really engage with a little bit more than just a normal kind of online webinar.
Again, in the line of that thinking, dichotomy between the focus of being niche and focused versus being very big and comprehensive. So where does geography sit within that structure? Are you focused just on London, just on the UK? Is it global? If it is global, how do you make sure there is enough shared experience between members?
Great question. So our members actually enjoy the idea of cross-collaboration across different regions. So at the moment, we have UK, South Africa, and other European countries too. We've got Denmark, we've got Netherlands, we've got Germany, Italy, Spain. So there are quite a few in there. The shared experience, we are together on this startup journey, right? On this entrepreneurial journey. And it almost doesn't matter where you are in the world. The only thing that would change is, for instance, your legal or your accounting practices. When it comes down to mindset and vision and that kind of thing, you're all pretty much in the same boat, which makes it actually quite easy for a cross collaboration for people in the UK to work with people in South Africa and give each other jobs and that kind of thing. It happens all the time. So we actually haven't had too much of a problem with regards to that.
Virtual co-working, it's a new term, and I feel like we are finding our footing, or we're just in the dark trying to find the best way. And when I say we, I mean all the people, professional working people in the world, most of them working from home now, and we are just discovering how it changes us in terms of our introversion versus extroversion, our socialization skills. And particularly about how it makes us feel as individuals. I know a lot of people have been suffering with mental health issues. I've looked at the data recently, I think yesterday. The number of that existential angst is felt more frequently and more often by more people in the world, I think. And of course, this is a very philosophical and difficult question, so I'm not going to ask about that. But just to bring it down to earth a bit, do you think we, as professional working adults, have an idea of what we actually want out of the working life? Do we ourselves know the structure we want, or are we just trying out new things, trying to find a good balance? Where do you see us? And I think it's central to the future of this community and businesses like this. So I think that's
Yep.
relevant.
Um, I think when remote working became or came about initially, we had the term digital nomad, which was super popular and really trendy, and everyone wanted to be a digital nomad.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was so much freedom, and you could travel and you could work in your pajamas and all
Go
of
to
these
Bali.
exciting. Exactly. And then obviously the pandemic hit and everyone was forced into this new type of working. And look, Boxed Community started just before this. So everything was kind of implemented pre-pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, people were quite confused and were almost thrown into the future of work. And everyone was so excited initially, but the reality came down to exactly like you're saying, the anxiety and depression, the ability not to pull yourself away from your computer, the distractions, the isolation. So there were a lot of issues that came about all of a sudden to a lot of people. And, as much as we didn't want the structure in our lives, we wanted this, freedom. We've found that the structure actually brings productivity, which increases confidence, which in turn would decrease your depression and anxiety. So, showing up every Tuesday to Friday in the morning for 2 hours to come into your co-working session, once you make that decision and once you start showing up, it really does bring more balance into your life. It's funny how you think, you don't want routine, you don't want structure, but you actually need that for balance. And that's why we only work 4 days, because we do believe in a 4-day work week. And, if people can use their weekends wisely, they must. So I think there's still a question on where people sit with this. But I think in turn, we have found that people want structure. They want to know that they have to, or not even structure, accountability, which is a lot harder when you're working remotely.
Indeed, indeed.
And that's what we kind of bring to the table. But we also bring, different sessions. We have creativity flow sessions where we do sketches or write stories or, that kind of thing. So it's important to have variety and balance. And that's why, again, that personal development aspect is so important for your personal growth, because the reality is your business or your work isn't going to go anywhere if you're not okay and you're not looked after.
Indeed.
And I think we're still trying to figure out what that looks like.
The role of others, in air quotation marks, by the way, others, and depending on others, and the mental well-being, feeling safe, supported, contained in a way. So I think that's at the very heart of being human. It's a very human thing. It's part of the human experience. And when we've taken that out of the equation, well, things haven't worked for some people. And for the people it worked, it became a bit more difficult. So in a way, this is quite interesting. Although Startups of London is about businesses, although we are experiencing Boxed Community as a business and talking about its merit and success as a business, and the people who join your community, they want business success. In a counterintuitive way, it's almost like this is not about business, but it's about the individual being okay with himself, herself, well-being, mental health and resilience and motivation. What do you think about this?
That's completely you're completely right. Those are the most powerful sessions in our community. the sessions around self-love. We run a program, The Artist's Way, once a year, which goes deep dives into, personal development, what you wanted to do, what you love, that kind of thing. And those definitely are the most powerful sessions. Our mental health conversations are amazing. The skill sharing and the workshops, yeah, we need that, right? We need that for business and to run an effective business. But it's all about you. It really is. It's all about the business owner. It's all about how you manage your team and the culture, and you have to be okay. And we just burn out, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest vulnerability in that system, if you will. So that's
Yep.
what needs to be fixed or addressed.
Yep.
I find that really interesting. A lot of communities have failed, and I think there are lessons that can be taken out of their failures. So, can we talk about your competitors, what the industry or this niche, speaking in startup terms, looks like? So, what communities failed? What did they do wrong? Which were successful? What did they do right? And in your way of looking at this, what do you think are vital for you as a business to just keep your focus on, so you keep growing as a platform, as a community, as you should?
Yeah. Um, the main reason communities fail, to be honest, is the same reason businesses fail. You don't listen to your client, you don't listen to your
Mm,
customer. We have to listen to our members. It's sometimes a hard pill to swallow when you believe that you wanted to create something and this is how the users are going to use it, and then they use it in a totally different way, and now you have to adjust your business. But you
yeah.
do,
Mhm.
right? Because if you don't, people aren't going to follow on. They're showing you, that's such good information, that they're showing you how they want to use your product. And if you ignore that and say, okay, but that's not what I wanted to create,
Yeah, that's the
then
biggest mistake. Mm.
exactly, and we get stuck in our ways and no, but I know better. No, you don't, clearly. So that's the big one about why communities fail. You're just not listening to your users. And then the ones that thrive are they're very specific in what they do. They've got their niche down. They've got their messaging down. It's really their marketing and what they give to their members. Because you have to realize that if a member is paying to be in your community, you've got to create some kind of value. So what is that value that you're giving them? And I mean, look, there are a lot of communities that are also free and that kind of thing too.
Mm.
But when it gets too big, that's a problem. And that's when you lose the focus, and you're focused more on numbers than on the actual people who are in there. So yeah, I guess the ones that work are the ones who listen and the ones who adapt, and the ones that don't are the ones who do the opposite, the ones who are stubborn and aren't necessarily solution oriented. And it's a challenge for sure, but you have to listen to your members and what they want.
I find it really incredibly fascinating that there is a paradox at the heart of being an entrepreneur or a founder. On the one hand, you need to be 100% a big believer in the fact that you have an understanding of the world,
Mm.
which allows you to take risks, and a certain amount of self-trust and belief in yourself, that you know the answer to some complex questions, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what drives that leap of faith, that adventure, that sense of adventure, and taking risks, and just bringing two mountains together as an entrepreneur. So you create a certain amount of success. But on the other hand, you need to be real cognizant of the fact that you don't know very much, and a lot of the answers out there, but you don't have always the capacity to decipher them. So I think the best founders are the ones who can juggle this paradox. Is this something that you experience yourself, or something that you see in your members?
Both for sure. It is challenge. Geez, you don't know how. hard it is starting a business until you start a business, right?
Yes.
It's really incredible to see how many people want their own businesses. And then, when given the opportunity to start them, don't.
Hmm.
Because it is a challenge. I mean, when I started, I've had businesses before. Let me say I thought I had businesses before. And this one just blew me away. This one was a lot more to chew on because it was a new concept. It was something that hadn't been done before. It was a new idea. And to get people on board with that with such little information, because yes, you say, the information is out there. Sometimes it's not.
And sometimes it's wrong.
Yeah, sometimes it's wrong, exactly. And what do you do with that? And the only thing you can do is test. That's how we started the community. We ran it for free, and I got a bunch of people in my network to say, listen, guys, come and tell me, is this worth investing in? Is this worth turning into something? And it was from that, every month, after each month, for that 3-month period, I got feedback. Okay, what's working, what's not? Cool. What should we try? What shouldn't we? And we still do that.
That's great.
Because you have to. You can't stop doing that because everything is changing constantly. And once we start accepting that the only constant is change, then we can be a little bit more flexible in how we approach the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. As a Startups of London, we've dabbled in creating a community last year, but it hasn't worked out very well in my experience in the way I see it. Although we had some members, and I think the biggest mistake we made was we underestimated the amount of time it would take to create a community. And I think the biggest time sink, or perhaps it's a valuable use of time. I don't want to be negative about this, but it just takes a lot of time, is listening to feedback and iterating about what type of a community it should be. And I think, as just you've mentioned, you are doing that. I think that's pivotal, that's vital to success in a community.
It's funny you say that, you didn't realize the time and that kind of thing that it takes. That's why this is all I do. Having another business outside of this, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't, or let me say this, I wouldn't be able to do it as well. I wouldn't be able to commit to it as much. And this is all I do. This is all I want to do, because I'm all about creating communities and building communities and creating safe spaces. And, especially for startups who, talk about an unstable career. Can we have one bit of stability where we can just tap into and see the same faces and have the same support and on a regular basis?
No.
I mean, exactly. So, we go from accelerators to incubators to startup programs, and we're meeting people along the way, but it's one community to another. We go to co-working spaces, and again, it's one community to another. And you're not forging those strong bonds and relationships that you actually need. So that's why we created this. So even with our program, sure, there's a free 3-month program, but you're not left in the lurch after that. You have a place to go after that. You stay part of the community, and we want to make that easy for you to do. So, that was the main reason for Boxed, where it was like, what a volatile career choice. Can we just have a little bit of consistency in our lives?
What you just shared made me think of an interesting dilemma with the invent of platforms first, like Facebook and others. The whole argument was that it would become easier. It would become very easy to connect with other people, right? And humans seek connection. That's true. So how could it be bad that it was easier, that people could connect with each other in an easier fashion? But I think the dilemma that occurred was, as it became easier and easier to connect with new people, connecting with new people turned into a commodity. It lost some of its allure and some of its value. And I think this happened unconsciously for a lot of people. And I can imagine a scene where I walk into a co-working space and I have a chat with someone, and we are both thinking, I'm probably never gonna see you again. Or
Yeah.
if I say something wrong, if I somehow damage that relationship, I know that it's not going to be really important because I can just find a new relationship in the next co-working space, in the next startup. So I think this had the unintended consequence of people seeing the connections they have with
Mm.
each other as more of a commodity compared to, let's say, living in a village in the 1960s, and you only have 20 people, and if you mess up your relationship with them, then you're going to be the village idiot. So you have to be careful and you have to really value the relationship. I think that that kind of a dynamic is at play here. I don't know, some of my free thoughts on this topic. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
You're exactly right, especially as startups. I mean, how many networking events are we going to, or let me say, how many times are we told to go to networking events because that's where you can sell your product? And when you go to a networking event, oh my goodness, I used to hate them. You just,
Hmm.
you both just introducing what you do. And then if you're not useful to each other, you just
It's like
move
a
on.
bazaar, isn't it? It's like a marketplace. That's why I think we don't. Some people don't like those kind of events because you're devaluing the human experience to a certain extent because it's just a commodity there.
100%. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that's what I've tried to remove away from this community. Um, when people get involved in this community, you're home. I can't explain it better than that. There's a familiarity to the community that's it's just in the culture of it. You
Hmm.
kind of either slot in or you don't, but it's so it's more than just, okay, how can I use you? I mean, people like that don't last, to be honest. They don't last. But the ones who come in and are open and vulnerable and share and just connect, oh, I'm getting goosebumps right now because it's so powerful when you have real connections. It makes all the difference. Like there's just so much love in this space. I can't
Spot
even explain it better than that.
Spot on. There is always emotion, and the
Mm.
difficulty of the age we're living in, and I think this is gonna be my last remark because I think we're running out of time. But because we are living in an age of creating new products and new technologies, we work with a lot of engineers, and engineers work with a lot of engineers. So we tend to, I think, scoot towards thinking in terms of ones and zeros and success in a lot of ways, being very left brained, very analytical, decision making, problem solving, analyzing, synthesizing, and so on. But although these are valuable, I have found, like as a human being, in my personal experience, I found motivations come from emotion. If you don't
Mm.
have the emotion, if you, then there is no motivation to do anything at all. So we need to embrace that and be in peace with that. But it's getting more and more difficult, I think, with this isolation. The lockdowns are turning out to be very costly. So I think you're doing a great thing. And this is why we love startups, don't we? We create value not only in terms of monetary value, but value for people. So for the people who have tuned in to this podcast, it is boxedcommunity.com, the website. I would urge you to visit it. I'm on there right now, and just to take a look. Maybe you will like it and join the BXT revolution and join the community. They also have a short video on there and an email address. And we would love you to share this podcast with the community members as well. When you have the time, by the way.
Definitely, 100%. We're on that. We're on that for sure.
As we wrap up, Nicole, I know we've run out of 30 minutes, but is there anything that you'd like to add as we wrap up in terms of your future goals? Are you perhaps hiring? Any announcements you have? If you have anything to add, we are all ears.
Thank you. It's just one. We have our Trailblazer program, like I mentioned earlier, 3 month free access to this awesome startup program for creatives. Apply on the website. You'll see there's a menu item called Trailblazers, so you can apply there. And just dive in. I mean, you've got nothing to lose. It's free, and it's just so powerful. The experts we've got on residents are just amazing, and you're really going to get a lot a lot out of it, not only for your business but for yourselves. So that's the one thing that I just want to share with everyone. Come on through.
Thank you for all that you've shared and being such a wonderful guest, Nicole. It was nice to have you on.
Thank you so much.